was a lot of excitement about family therapy as a revolution. And I found that I could reorganize the families just the way the book said to do it. And yet many of my clients would keep binging and purging. And so out of frustration, I began to ask those clients what was happening inside. They started talking about these different parts of them and how something bad happened, it would trigger a part that would make them feel really worthless. I was following them in the way I was following families. I was just tracking these different sequences of interaction. And there was one client who came in who was my first survivor of sexual abuse and also cut herself, was a self-mutilator. And it was driving me crazy that she was doing this, and she, of course, insisted on showing me the open wounds every session, and decided one session that we wouldn't let her out until the part had agreed not to do that anymore. Then I opened the door to the next session, and I saw now she had a big gash down the middle of her face. And it really shifted my world, and I just kind of collapsed at that point and said, you know, this is a dangerous game, and I can't win, and I give up. And the part softened immediately and just said, you know, I don't want to win. I don't want to beat you. I don't want to fight. The part began to tell the story of how necessary it was to do this to her back when she was being abused, and how important it was to get her out of her body during that time, which this could do, and also to contain the rage she was feeling, because if she ever expressed any of the rage, she'd be tortured more by her abuser. And I shifted once again from just pure curiosity to now really feeling compassion and appreciation for this part. The part proceeded to talk about how important it was to continue to do that now, because the rage was still there and because there were still times in her life that she needed to be out of her body, the part thought. So it became clear that for parts like that to change, we would first have to change the conditions that kept them in these roles.
In his work to organize clients' internal parts, Dr. Schwartz adapted frameworks from strategic and structural family therapy. He followed the ideas of Milton Erickson and Don Jackson. Salvador Minuchin's model of family structures particularly influenced Schwartz's work. By narrowing down internal roles to 3 basic types, Schwartz was able to therapeutically connect with his clients while developing a compassionate dialogue with the internal parts, thereby clearing the way for a more lasting and profound healing.
Just beneath the surface of these parts, there was this, what people called their self, or their true self, or core self, that could be accessed by simply having these parts separate. And in that state, that people could go to work to heal their own parts. Many spiritual traditions already knew about this and had different words for it. And I seem to have stumbled into a way to quickly access what all of these traditions had already known about, but sometimes would need 20 years to meditate to get to. And my clients, as they got these parts to move out, they could just be in that state. And it was a very healing state for them. And I decided to devote my life to it.
She said, we will start to untangle these parts. And one by one, we will start to look at these parts and understand these parts.
It taught me to learn how to embrace and welcome in a kind of a come-as-you-are environment, atmosphere inside, the parts of me that usually I would just kind of cut off or beat down.
And you'll be able to do it from a place of peace and contentment and confidence.
And I found that as I began to embrace these parts that were doing things that were extreme or doing things I didn't want them to do, I found that they were actually transforming.
And it was the first time I think I really had a genuine sense of courage, faith in myself, and hope that I can heal.
Over the years, the IFS model has garnered enthusiastic recognition among therapists, social scientists, and educators. In the lineage of family and marriage therapies, IFS holds a unique position as a robust, non-pathologizing method of healing. Recently, universities have underwritten research of IFS therapy's effects on veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome and individuals with arthritis, while independent studies have expanded IFS to other fields such as healing survivors of civil wars and genocide.
I would like to suggest that when you listen, perhaps to your clients, many of you I know are therapists, and whether you're listening to your clients or even just anyone else, just see if you can maybe make a little bit more of a shift to put a bit more of your awareness in your own body while you're listening, while you're attentively listening to another person. You know, there's just been a wonderful weave between my practice and the teaching, that they both inform each other. And I even find today that after I teach for a weekend, I come back and it feels like it has enlivened my private practice.
My Hakomi trainer told me about an IFS training that was happening in Connecticut, and it was going to be the first one that was there. And when I read the information, I just knew immediately that I had to take the training. It made sense to me from the moment I heard about it. I think I've always really thought as parts, it just always made so much internal sense to me, and I was always aware of the internal struggles and battles that I had going on inside of me. And so it was a model that actually gave me some conscious, sort of concrete structure to something that I had always known about.
Therapists will come from backgrounds where some, what I call parts, but they would encourage clients to accept some aspects of themselves and still battle against others. So this radical position that there aren't any that you need to fight against, and in fact you can love all of them, that really tends to blow people away in the beginning. And as the therapists in training begin to practice with each other, they also become shocked to find that what I'm saying is true, that people do have these resources, that traditional diagnostic categories really undersold everybody in terms of how much how much strength they have inside.
When I actually saw the work, I was totally smitten. It was such a powerful, moving kind of drama that would unfold with clients.
And it was not just a technique or a way, a tool of doing therapy. It was a whole way of seeing the world and a whole way of seeing healing.
The big payoff for many therapists taking the training is the personal growth that comes as they begin to practice on each other and are led inside on these amazing journeys to actually unburden some of their parts. And then also in the process of doing that and being so vulnerable and connected with other members of the training, this very powerful community experience grows.
I have learned about myself. I have learned to love myself, value myself deeply.
The Center for Self-Leadership welcomes individuals from all walks of life seeking personal and spiritual growth. There are Level 1 trainings in over a dozen cities across the United States each year.
IFS has been life-changing for me personally, and it has been I would say the right turn in the road for me professionally. It's kind of like the Oscars, the Emmys. It's top of the heap for me.
It's really just shifted my way of thinking about how people can heal.
It was really a life-saving sort of thing for me, yeah.
Visit us online at selfleadership.org to learn more about a training near you or to connect with an IFS practitioner and experience the richness of the IFS community.